I had been in the process of looking for a renovation company, and I had gone down the road with a particular company, proceeded with getting a quote, and was unhappy with the results of the quote and the lack of transparency in their business process. So I was in the search for a new company, and Trademark came recommended from a coworker at my work, and I proceeded to contact them and to get a comparison. Yeah, they were roughly, I think, about 30% higher. Their total quote came in just under 1.1 million, and Trademark's initial quote came in just around 800,000. So there was about a $300,000 cost gap on an apples-to-apples basis. Sure, yeah, the other company was basically, like I said, one fixed number, but there was no detailed breakdown what went into that number, whereas the Trademark quote came with detailed supplier and trades quotes that you could physically see and look through and add up to make sure the numbers all added up, so you could see how much the paint was going to cost, the plumbing was going to cost, and the various components. So it was a lot more transparent, so I knew at the end of the day where the checks were going to be made to. I liked it was a lot more informal. The other company was a lot more formal with legal agreements and complex contracts that for the average person that hasn't gone through a home renovation would find a bit overwhelming and intimidating. I liked that the Trademark system was, nothing was set in stone at the design, at the initial quote stage. You had lots of flexibility along the way to change your decision making on your selections, whereas the other system was a lot more defined, and each change would end up costing you money, whether it was really the true value of what the product was that you were going to end up at the end. You were unsure of what you were paying for, I guess. Other company we started off working with asked us for a substantial design deposit, but at that point we had no cost presented to us, so we were unsure if we would proceed with this particular company. And in the end, when we were given one lump sum cost and decided that we didn't want to proceed with them, they were reluctant to pass along the design components that we had already paid for. So I would caution people when they're researching to make sure they really understand before handing over those deposits if they should not proceed with that company, what they are entitled to take with them at the end. It was a component of architectural fees and design fees for millwork, and it was somewhere in the magnitude just under $20,000 that we paid. And then at the end, when we decided not to proceed on the renovation, once we saw their costs, they were reluctant to pass along the architectural plans and the millwork design that we had paid for, which was disappointing. It was an informal meeting, actually just in our dining room, where we kind of walked through the quote that we had been provided from the other company. And then I think it was turned around in a couple weeks. We had detailed trades quotes from Trademark suppliers broken out in a spreadsheet that was easily identified, like you could go line by line and identify each cost item. The timelines were all kind of laid out. The contract that was presented was easy to understand and well thought through, and they seemed to have a good handle on the process and how long it would take to complete the project. So the initial meeting was, like I said, very informal, which was followed up by we did a lot of due diligence on interviewing some of their past clients. So we ended up going to visit some of their site tours on some homes that they had worked on and talk to some of those homeowners to get a feel for their experience. Yeah, they reiterated. There was one particular individual that had been down a similar process that provided some reassurance on they had gone with the same company in their first go around, and then ended up with Trademark, so they were able to provide their experience, and it sort of matched up in line with what we had experienced, so it kind of gave us a good feeling that we weren't out to lunch. And so yeah, it was nice to talk to some of the previous clients, because it's always good to get some referrals, and the fact that I had a coworker that had been through a similar scope and had a positive experience was reassuring. Yeah, well, most of it was pretty much like there was some delays that were kind of at the city level, but then once the work got started, it was all magic. Like, we had our project manager that was managing all the tradespeople, so there was really limited contact that we needed to make, but all the communication was coming through him. So we had sort of weekly updates as to the progress, the timelines, and then we worked with the designer that helped us make sure that we met all of our design selection timelines. So it was relatively seamless, and there was no stresses from us having to deal with the individual trades. Obviously, that was all handled for us. I would recommend Trademark to anyone that's going through this process, based on purely the fact of kind of meeting the deadlines that were set out, which is important. Yeah, timelines were met, and within budget, which are two major things in my mind when you're doing a renovation project.